Commander Zara Lynn stood on the bridge of the Star's Edge and watched the human ships move closer. Her crystalline skin glowed blue in the dim light of the command center. Like all Altarians, she was tall and thin with features that looked like they were carved from living crystal. Her eyes were silver and could see things that humans could not. The war had been going on for 3 years now. 3 long years of fighting these strange creatures called humans. Zara Lynn had learned to hate them. They were violent and greedy. They took planets that did not belong to them. They destroyed beautiful worlds just to build their ugly cities. "Commander, the human ships are getting ready to attack," said Lieutenant Keseval through their mind link. He was her bonded partner, connected to her thoughts and feelings. When one felt pain, the other felt it too. When one was happy, both were happy. This was the Altarian way. Keseval was flying his fighter ship near the civilian transport ships they were protecting. His job was to keep the human fighters away from the innocent people trying to escape to safety. Zara Lynn could feel his calm focus through their bond. He was not afraid. He never was. "I see them, my love," Zara Lynn replied in her mind. "Stay close to the transports. These humans fight without honor." The human fleet was bigger than expected. Their ships were ugly and rough, made of dark metal instead of the smooth crystal that Altarian ships were made from. But Zara Lynn knew they were dangerous. Humans might be primitive, but they were good at killing. "All ships, prepare for battle," Zara Lynn ordered out loud. Her voice was calm but firm. She had fought many battles against the humans. She knew what to expect. The space around the Proxima Nebula lit up with weapon fire. Blue beams from Altarian ships crossed with red lasers from human vessels. The darkness of space became bright with explosions and burning metal. Zara Lynn watched the battle from her command chair. She could feel the emotions of her crew through the weak mind links all Altarians shared. Fear, anger, determination. But strongest of all, she felt Keseval's presence. He was out there in his small fighter, dancing between enemy ships like a piece of music made real. "Human fighters are breaking through Sector 7, reported her weapons officer. "They are heading for the civilian ships." Zara Lynn's heart grew cold. The civilians were just families trying to get away from the war. Old people, children, mothers with babies. The humans would kill them all without thinking twice. "Keseval, they are coming your way," she warned through their bond. "I see them," he replied. His fighter ship turned and flew straight at the incoming human fighters. There were 5 of them and only 1 of him, but Keseval did not hesitate. Zara Lynn felt his focus sharpen like a blade. Through their connection, she could see what he saw. Human fighters with their red and white markings, ugly ships that moved like angry insects. But fast, very fast. The first human fighter fired at one of the transport ships. Keseval moved his ship in the way, and the beam hit his shields instead. The energy barrier around his fighter flashed and sparked. "Shields at 60%, he told her calmly. 2 more human fighters attacked. Keseval spun his ship and fired back. His blue beam cut through the wing of one enemy fighter, sending it spinning away into the dark. But the other humans kept coming. Zara Lynn wanted to help him, but her big ship was too far away. She could only watch through their bond as her partner fought alone against impossible odds. "Transport Ship 3 is clear," Keseval reported. "Moving to protect Transport Ship 4. A human fighter got behind him. Zara Lynn felt a spike of worry from Keseval as red laser beams lit up around his ship. One beam hit his engine, and she felt the shock of it through their bond like a punch to her stomach. "Keseval," she called out. "Engine damaged but still flying," he said, but she could feel his pain now. The hit had hurt him. More human fighters were coming. Too many. Keseval's ship was damaged and slow. Zara Lynn gripped the arms of her command chair so hard that the metal bent under her crystal fingers. "Pull back," she ordered him. "Let the escort ships handle them." "Negative," Keseval replied. "Transport Ship 4 has children on board. I will not let them die." That was Keseval, always thinking of others first. It was why she loved him. It was also why she was terrified for him. The largest human ship, a cruiser called Liberty's Dawn, turned its big guns toward the transport ships. Those guns could destroy a transport ship with one shot. Keseval flew his damaged fighter straight at the cruiser. "What are you doing?" Zara Lynn asked, but she already knew. Through their bond, she could feel his plan. He was going to ram the cruiser's gun batteries, destroy them with his own ship. "Tell my sister I love her," Keseval said quietly in her mind. "No," Zara Lynn screamed, both out loud and through their mental connection. "There has to be another way." But Keseval had already made his choice. His fighter ship, trailing fire and smoke, crashed into the side of the human cruiser. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. Through their bond, Zara Lynn felt everything. The moment of impact, the heat, the crushing force. And then, suddenly, nothing. The warm presence that had lived in her mind for 8 years was gone, cut off like someone had turned off a light. The pain hit her like a physical blow. She screamed and fell from her command chair. Her crystal skin flickered and went dark. Around her, the bridge crew felt her agony through their own weak mind, links, and cried out in sympathy. "Commander," her second officer called out. "Are you injured?" But Zara Lynn could not answer. The place in her mind where Keseval had lived was empty now, torn and bleeding. It felt like half of her soul had been ripped away. On the main screen, she could see that Keseval's sacrifice had worked. The human cruiser was damaged and pulling back. The transport ships were safe. The children would live. But Keseval would not. Rage filled the empty space where love had been. Hot, burning rage that made her crystal skin glow red instead of blue. The humans had taken everything from her. Her partner, her other half, her future. "All ships, pursue the enemy," she ordered, her voice rough with pain and anger. "Make them pay." The human ships were running away, damaged and broken. The Liberty's Dawn was limping toward an asteroid field, trying to hide among the floating rocks. Zara Lynn did not care about orders or tactics anymore. She only cared about revenge. "Commander, we should let them go," her second officer said carefully. "We have won this battle." "No," Zara Lynn snarled. "We follow them. We make them pay for what they did." She ordered her ship to chase the human cruiser into the asteroid field. Her crew obeyed, but she could feel their worry through the mind links. This was not like her. Zara Lynn was known for being calm and smart in battle, but grief had made her reckless. The Star's Edge followed the human ship deeper into the field of floating rocks. The asteroids were big here, some as large as cities. They blocked sensors and made it hard to see. Perfect for an ambush. "Commander, we are getting too far from the fleet," her navigation officer warned. "I do not care," Zara Lynn replied. "Find that human ship." The Liberty's Dawn appeared suddenly from behind a large asteroid. Its guns were still working, and they fired everything they had at the Star's Edge. Zara Lynn's ship shook as energy. Beams hit its crystal armor. "Return fire," she ordered. The two ships fought among the asteroids, firing at each other while trying not to crash into the floating rocks. Zara Lynn's ship was bigger and stronger, but the human cruiser was faster and harder to hit. A human missile exploded against the Star's Edge's bridge. The lights went out, and Zara Lynn felt her ship start to spin out of control. Through the broken windows, she could see a huge asteroid coming straight at them. "Brace for impact," someone shouted. The last thing Zara Lynn remembered before everything went dark was the feeling of her ship crashing into the asteroid. Then pain. Then nothing. Jake Morrison walked carefully through the rocks and metal pieces scattered around the crash site. His boots made soft sounds on the dusty ground of Haven's Rest, a small mining planet where nobody important ever came. His rifle was ready, but his medical bag was what he really cared about. The alien ship had crashed 3 days ago. Jake's patrol unit had seen the explosion from 20 miles away. Captain Rodriguez had ordered them to check it out, hoping to find useful intelligence or maybe capture an enemy pilot alive. But when they got to the crash site, Jake's squad mates took one look at the twisted metal and crystal remains and decided the alien inside must be dead. They took some pictures and left. Jake stayed behind, telling them he wanted to collect more evidence. That was a lie. Jake stayed because he could hear something, a weak tapping sound coming from inside the wreckage. Someone was alive in there. Jake had been a combat medic for 4 years. Before the war, he had wanted to be a doctor like his father. He had joined the military to get training and help pay for medical school. Then the war with the Altarians. started, and instead of saving lives in a hospital, he was trying to keep soldiers alive on battlefields. He had seen too much death already. His little brother Danny had died when Altarian fighters attacked a civilian transport. His best friend Marcus got killed by an alien energy weapon last month. Jake was tired of watching people die, so when he heard that tapping sound, he could, not just walk away. It took him 6 hours to dig through the wreckage. The alien ship was made of some kind of crystal material that was both beautiful and very hard. Jake had to use a plasma cutter from his engineering kit to make a hole big enough to crawl through. Inside the ship, everything was broken. Strange. Lights flickered and went out. The walls were smooth and curved, nothing like human ships. And there, trapped under a fallen beam, was the alien pilot. Jake had never seen an Altarian up close before. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, and thin like a dancer. Her skin looked like it was made of blue crystal, but it moved and bent like regular skin. Her hair was long and silver, and her eyes were the strangest thing Jake had ever seen. They were completely silver with no white parts at all. She was badly hurt. One of her legs was trapped under the beam, and there was blue blood on her face and arms. When she saw Jake, she tried to reach for a weapon, but she was too weak. "Easy," Jake said softly, holding up his hands to show he was not going to hurt her. "I am here to help." The alien said something in her own language. It sounded like music, but angry music. Jake did not understand the words, but he could tell she was telling him to stay away. "I am a medic," Jake said slowly. He pointed to the red cross on his uniform. "Doctor, I help people." The alien stared at him with those strange silver eyes. She said something else, and this time Jake thought he heard fear in her musical voice. Jake set down his rifle and showed her his medical bag. "Medicine," he said, hoping she would understand. "To make you feel better." It took 2 hours to free her from the beam. Jake had to use his plasma cutter again, being very careful not to hurt her more. The alien watched him the whole time, sometimes saying things in her language that sounded like questions. When the beam was finally moved, Jake could see that her leg was broken badly. He also found other injuries, cuts, burns, and something that looked like a concussion. Without medical help, she would die in a day or two. Jake knew what he was supposed to do. Military rules were clear. Enemy aliens should be captured or killed, not helped. But looking at this hurt woman, Jake could not think of her as an enemy. She was just someone who needed help. He started with the worst injuries first. The broken leg needed to be set and wrapped. The cuts needed to be cleaned and closed. Jake worked slowly and carefully, talking to her the whole time. "My name is Jake," he said as he worked on her leg. "I am from Earth. That is my home planet." The alien said something back. Jake thought one of the words might be her name, but it was too long and musical for him to remember. "What is your name?" he asked, pointing to himself and saying Jake again. The alien looked at him for a long moment. Then she pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Zara Lynn. "Zara Lynn," Jake repeated carefully. She nodded and said it again, slower this time. Jake tried to copy the musical sound of it. When he got it almost right, something strange happened. The alien's crystal skin flickered, and for just a second, it glowed a little brighter. Jake finished treating her injuries and gave her some pain medicine. She was still weak, but at least she was not dying anymore. The problem was Jake had to leave soon. His unit would wonder where he was. "I have to go," he said, pointing toward the entrance he had cut in the ship. "But I will come back, tomorrow." The alien, Zara Lynn, grabbed his arm with surprising strength. She said something urgent in her language. "I do not understand," Jake said. "But I promise I will come back. I will bring more medicine and food." That night, Jake lay in his sleeping bag at the patrol base and thought about what he was doing. Helping an enemy soldier was treason. If Captain Rodriguez found out, Jake would be court-martialed and probably shot. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Zara Lynn trapped under that beam, hurt and alone. His brother Danny had died alone too. No one had been there to help him when the Altarian fighters attacked his transport. Jake wondered if maybe, somewhere, out there, an Altarian medic had wanted to help Danny but could not because of the war. The next day, Jake volunteered for solo patrol duty. It was dangerous to go out alone. but it was the only way he could visit Zara Lynn without anyone knowing. He loaded his pack with medical supplies, food, and water. When he got back to the crash site, Zara Lynn was awake and sitting up. She looked much better than the day before. Her crystal skin was glowing soft blue again instead of the sick gray color it had been. "Jake," she said when she saw him. His name sounded strange in her musical voice, but hearing her say it made him smile. "How do you feel?" he asked, even though he knew she probably did not understand. Zara Lynn pointed to her leg and made a face that clearly meant it hurts. Then she pointed to the food Jake had brought, and her eyes went wide. Jake had brought military rations, not very good, but better than nothing. He heated up a meal pack and offered it to her. She sniffed it carefully before taking a small bite. Her face showed surprise, then something that might have been pleasure. While she ate, Jake checked her injuries. The leg was healing well and the cuts were starting to close. Altarians seemed to heal faster than humans. "You are getting better," Jake said. Zara Lynn finished eating and said something long in her language. Jake wished he could understand her. From her tone, it sounded like she was asking questions. "I do not speak Altarian," Jake said. He pointed to his mouth and shook his head. "Sorry." Zara Lynn frowned, thinking. Then she pointed to Jake and said, "Human?" with a questioning tone. "Yes," Jake nodded. "Human, from Earth," she pointed to herself, and said Altarian, from Altaria. It was a start. Over the next hour they taught each other basic words. Jake learned that the Altarian word for water was Kes, and food was Nala. Zara Lynn learned that humans called their home star Sol, and that Jake's job was medic. When it was time for Jake to leave, Zara Lynn grabbed his hand. Her crystal skin was warm, which surprised him. She said something in Altarian, then tried to say it in English. "You help. Why?" she asked slowly. Jake thought about how to answer that. "Because you needed help," he said finally. "And because maybe if we help each other, the war can end someday." Zara Lynn stared at him. With those silver eyes, she did not understand all his words, but she seemed to understand what he meant. She squeezed his hand gently before letting go. Jake visited her every day for the next week. Each time, their conversations got a little longer and a little easier. Zara Lynn was smart and learned English words quickly. Jake picked up some Altarian too, though his tongue could not make the musical sounds properly. On the 7th day, Zara Lynn was strong enough to stand and walk around the ship. Jake helped her check the damage to see if it could be repaired. "Engine broken," she said sadly. "Communication broken. Cannot call for help." "Maybe I can help fix it," Jake offered. Zara Lynn looked at him in surprise. "You would do that? Help enemy ship?" Jake met her silver gaze. "You are not my enemy anymore, Zara Lynn. You are my friend." For the first time since he had known her, Zara Lynn smiled. It transformed her entire face, making her crystal features warm and beautiful. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "Friend," she repeated softly. "Yes, friend." 3 weeks had passed since Jake first found Zara Lynn in the crashed ship. Every day he brought her food, medicine, and parts to help fix her ship. Every day, they talked a little more and understood each other a little better. Zara Lynn's English was getting much better. She could now have real conversations with Jake, even though she still spoke slowly and sometimes used the wrong words. Jake had learned enough Altarian to say basic things, though his pronunciation made her laugh. "Tell me about Earth," Zara Lynn said one afternoon as Jake worked on her ship's communication system. She was sitting nearby, handing him tools when he needed them. Jake paused his work and smiled. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," she said. "We are taught that humans come from a world of violence and death. Is this true?" Jake thought about how to answer that. "Earth has violence, yes. We fight wars with each other sometimes, but it also has beautiful things. Oceans that are so blue they look like jewels, mountains covered with snow, forests where the trees are so big you could build houses inside them." Zara Lynn listened carefully. "Tell me more." So Jake told her about the farm in Nebraska where he grew up. About wheat fields that went on forever under a blue sky. About his parents who grew corn and raised cattle. About summer evenings when fireflies danced in the warm air. My brother Danny and I used to catch fireflies in jars when we were kids, Jake said. But our mother always made us let them go before bedtime. She said they belonged in the sky, not in cages. Your brother, Zara Lynn said softly. He died in the war? Jake nodded. On a transport ship. Altarian fighters attacked it. He was quiet for a moment. I hated your people for a long time because of that. And now? Zara Lynn asked. Jake looked at her crystal blue skin and silver eyes. Now I know that not all Altarians are the same, just like not all humans are the same. Zara Lynn was quiet for a while. Then she said, I lost someone too. His name was Kessival. He was my bonded partner. Bonded partner? Jake asked. It is hard to explain in English, Zara Lynn said. Altarians can connect their minds together, share thoughts and feelings. Kessival and I were bonded for 8 years. When he died, part of me died too. Jake stopped working and looked at her. I am sorry. That sounds like it would hurt very much. It did, Zara Lynn said. It still does. There is an empty place in my mind where he used to be. I thought it would never stop hurting. But it is getting better, Jake asked gently. Zara Lynn looked at him with those strange silver eyes. Yes, slowly. You have helped with that, Jake Morrison. The way she said his full name, with her musical accent, made Jake's heart skip a beat. Over the past weeks, he had started to notice things about Zara Lynn that had nothing to do with her being an alien. The way she laughed when he mispronounced Altarian words. How her skin glowed brighter when she was happy. The graceful way she moved, even with her injured leg. Jake was starting to realize he was falling in love with her. It was crazy and impossible, but it was true. Tell me about Altaria, Jake said, trying to distract himself from these dangerous thoughts. Zara Lynn's face lit up. Oh, Jake, it is the most beautiful world in the galaxy. Our cities are made of living crystal that grows from the ground like trees. They sing when the wind blows through them, making music that changes with the weather. She told him about crystal gardens where plants made of light grew in patterns of pure color. About the great libraries where all Altarian knowledge was stored in singing stones. About the bonding ceremonies where young Altarians found their life partners through mental connection. It sounds amazing, Jake said, but tell me something. If Altarians are so peaceful and spiritual, why are you at war with humans? Zara Lynn's expression became sad. Because humans take what is not theirs. You expand across the galaxy without asking permission. You settle on worlds that are sacred to us. Sacred how? Jake asked. They are burial worlds, Zara Lynn explained. Places where our ancestors rest. Humans build cities on top of them. It is like someone building a house in your family cemetery. Jake put down his tools and stared at her. We did not know. Humans never knew those worlds were burial grounds. We tried to tell you, Zara Lynn said. But humans do not listen to telepathic communication, and when we sent ships to ask you to leave, you shot at them. Because we thought you were attacking us, Jake said, understanding starting to dawn on him. And we thought you were ignoring our peaceful requests and choosing to desecrate our dead, Zara Lynn replied. They looked at each other in silence for a moment. The whole war, Jake realized, had started because of a misunderstanding. Neither side had tried hard enough to really communicate with the other. This is all so stupid, Jake said finally. Yes, Zara Lynn agreed. Very stupid. And now too many have died on both sides. That evening, Zara Lynn asked Jake about his nightmares. She had noticed that he sometimes jerked awake when he dozed off while working on her ship. I dream about my squad, Jake admitted. The men who died under my command. I see their faces. I hear them calling for help, but I cannot reach them in. May I try something? Zara Lynn asked. It might help. Jake nodded, though he was not sure what she meant. Zara Lynn moved closer to him and gently placed her hand on his forehead. Her crystal skin felt warm and tingly. Close your eyes, she said softly. Think about something peaceful. Your home, your family. Jake closed his eyes and tried to think about the farm in Nebraska. But instead of the usual memories of wheat fields and blue skies, something else came into his mind. He could see Altaria as Zara Lynn had described it. Crystal cities singing in the wind, gardens of light. It was beautiful and calming. "How are you doing that?" he whispered. "Sharing my thoughts with you," Zara Lynn said. "It is something all Altarians can do, but only with someone we trust completely." The peaceful images in Jake's mind slowly replaced the nightmares of war. For the first time in months, he felt truly calm. "Thank you," he said when she finally took her hand away. "You have given me so much," Zara Lynn said. "It is good to give something back." The next day, Jake brought something special with him. It was a small device that could show pictures and videos. "I want to show you something," he said, turning on the device. The screen lit up with images of Earth. Blue oceans, green forests, snow-covered mountains, cities full of people of different colors and shapes, children playing in parks, families having picnics. "This is what we are fighting for," Jake said. "Not conquest or glory, just the right to live and be happy." Zara Lynn watched the images with wide eyes. "They look so peaceful, happy. Most humans are," Jake said. "We are not all soldiers and warriors. Most of us just want to grow food, raise families, and live in peace." Then Jake showed her pictures of his own family. His parents standing in front of their farmhouse. His little brother Danny grinning with a fishing pole in his hands. Danny was only 19 when he died, Jake said quietly. He wanted to be a teacher, he loved kids. Zara Lynn touched the screen gently with one crystal finger. "He looks kind." "He was," Jake said. "He would have liked you, I think." "And I would have liked him," Zara Lynn said. Over the following days, their conversations grew deeper. They talked about their hopes and dreams, their fears about the war, their memories of the people they had lost. Slowly, Jake began to see that despite their different biology, humans and Altarians were not so different after all. Both species loved their families. Both mourned their dead. Both wanted peace and happiness for their children. The war between them was not inevitable. It was just a terrible mistake that had grown too big to stop. "Sometimes I think about what would happen if the war ended tomorrow," Zara Lynn said one day. "Would humans and Altarians ever be able to live together in peace?" "I think so," Jake said. "Look at us. A few weeks ago we were supposed to be enemies. Now—" He did not finish the sentence, but Zara Lynn knew what he meant. Something had grown between them that was stronger than the hatred of war. Something that might, if they were very lucky, grow into love. "Jake," Zara Lynn said softly, "when my ship is fixed, I will have to leave. I will have to go back to my people." "I know," Jake said, though the thought made his heart ache. "And you will have to go back to yours." "Yes." They looked at each other, across the small space of the ship. Both of them knew that they were standing at the edge of something dangerous and wonderful. Both of them knew that falling in love across the lines of war could only end in heartbreak. But neither of them could stop it from happening. Jake knew he was in love with Zara Lynn. He had known it for days now, but he had been too scared to say anything. Every morning when he walked to her ship, his heart beat faster. Every evening when he had to leave her, it felt like part of him was being torn away. Zara Lynn's ship was almost repaired. Jake had helped her fix the communication array, the life support system, and most of the engine. Soon she would be able to call for rescue from her people. Soon she would leave, and Jake would never see her again. "The engine is working at 60% power," Zara Lynn said as they tested the systems together. "Enough to reach Altarian space." "That is good," Jake said, but his voice sounded sad even to himself. Zara Lynn looked at him with those silver eyes that had become so dear to him. "You do not sound happy about it." Jake stopped what he was doing and turned to face her. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I do not want you to leave," Jake said quietly. "I know that is selfish. I know you have to go back to your people. But I do not want to lose you." Zara Lynn was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand in hers. Her crystal skin was warm against his. Jake, she said softly. I do not want to leave either. They stood there in the dim light of the ship, holding hands and looking into each other's eyes. Jake could see his own feelings reflected in her silver gaze. This is impossible, Jake whispered. You are Altarian. I am human. Our people are at war. I know, Zaralyn said, but I cannot help how I feel. You saved my life. You showed me kindness when you could have killed me. You made me believe that not all humans are evil. And you showed me that Altarians are not monsters, Jake said. You are beautiful and kind. And I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Jake had said it. There was no taking it back now. Zaralyn's skin began to glow brighter. Love, she repeated softly. It is not the same as bonding, but it feels like something beautiful. Do you think you could love me too? Jake asked. Instead of answering with words, Zaralyn leaned forward and kissed him. Her lips were soft and warm, and Jake felt like his heart might explode with happiness. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Is that a yes? Jake asked with a smile. Yes, Zaralyn said, laughing. Very much yes. They spent the rest of that day talking about impossible dreams. What if the war ended? What if humans and Altarians could live together? What if they could build a life somewhere somehow? But their happiness was interrupted by the sound of engines overhead. Jake looked up and saw human military ships landing nearby. Someone followed me, Jake said, panic rising in his throat. I have to hide you. But it was too late. Soldiers were already entering the crash site. Jake heard Captain Rodriguez's voice calling his name. Morrison, we know you are in there. Jake and Zaralyn looked at each other. If the soldiers found her, they would capture her or worse. If they found out Jake had been helping her, he would be executed for treason. Surrender yourself and the alien, Rodriguez called out. This is your last chance. To Jake's surprise, Zaralyn squeezed his hand and smiled. It will be okay, she said. How can you say that? Jake asked. Because I trust you, she said, and because love makes people do brave things. Jake took a deep breath and walked out of the ship with his hands up. Zaralyn followed him. Captain Rodriguez was waiting with a squad of soldiers, all pointing, their weapons at them. But there was someone else there too, a tall woman with graying hair and colonel's insignia on her uniform. Stand down, Captain, the colonel said. But Colonel Hayes, this man is clearly... I said stand down, Colonel Hayes repeated firmly. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Colonel Hayes walked over to Jake and Zaralyn. She looked at them both, for a long moment. Sergeant Morrison, she said finally, are you going to tell me you have been treating this Altarian's injuries? Jake's mouth went dry. Yes, ma'am. And are you going to tell me that you have developed feelings for her? Jake felt Zaralyn's hand slip into his. Yes, ma'am, Colonel Hayes nodded. Good, because we need both of you. Ma'am? Jake asked, confused. Sergeant Morrison, Commander Zaralyn, Hayes said, somehow knowing Zaralyn's rank. You are both coming with me. There are some people you need to meet. An hour later, Jake and Zaralyn found themselves on a secret military base hidden in the asteroid belt. Colonel Hayes led them to a conference room where something impossible was happening. Humans and Altarians were sitting around the same table, talking to each other. Welcome to the Peace Coalition, Hayes said. We are a group of military officers, from both sides who believe this war needs to end. Jake stared in amazement. There were 5 humans and 4 Altarians in the room, all wearing military uniforms. They were talking quietly together, sharing information and making plans. How is this possible? Zaralyn asked. An elderly Altarian with golden skin stood up. Because some of us are tired of watching our children die for a war that should never have started, he said in perfect English. I am General Thesimar of the Altarian High Command. And I am Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force, said a human woman. We have been secretly meeting for months, trying to find a way to end this conflict. Hayes gestured for Jake and Zaralyn to sit down. We heard about what happened here. An Altarian commander and a human medic working together, falling in love. You two represent something very important. What? Jake asked. Hope, General Thesamar said. Proof that our species can not only coexist but care for each other. Admiral Chen nodded. We want you both to help us. Return to your respective commands but as double agents. Feed each side information that will create opportunities for peace talks. You want us to betray our own people? Zara Lynn asked. We want you to save your people, Hayes said. Both sets of people. This war is destroying both our civilizations. Over the next several hours, they explained the plan. Jake would return to his unit and report that he had found the Altarian ship destroyed with no survivors. Zara Lynn would return to her fleet and report that she had been rescued by a patrol ship. Both would then use their positions to feed intelligence to the Peace Coalition. Information about troop movements, battle plans, weaknesses that could be exploited not for military advantage, but to create situations where peace negotiations might be possible. It is dangerous, General Thesamar warned. If either of your commands discovers what you are doing, you will be executed as traitors. But if we succeed, Admiral Chen added, we might be able to arrange a ceasefire, maybe even a permanent peace treaty. Jake looked at Zara Lynn. Her silver eyes were serious, but determined. I will do it, she said. If there is a chance to end this war, I must try. So will I, Jake said. They spent 3 more days at the secret base, learning how to communicate with the Peace Coalition and planning their return to their respective fleets. On the last night, Jake and Zara Lynn walked together in a small garden that had been built in one of the asteroid's caverns. Are you scared? Jake asked. Terrified, Zara Lynn admitted, but also hopeful. For the first time since Kesaval died, I feel like there might be a future worth living for. Even if we get caught? Jake asked. Even then, she said. Because, at least we will have tried to do something good. They held each other close under the artificial stars of the garden ceiling. Tomorrow they would return to the war, pretending to be enemies again while secretly working for peace. But their plan lasted only 2 weeks. Jake was in his quarters when Captain Rodriguez burst in with a squad of military police. Sergeant Morrison, you are under arrest for treason, Rodriguez announced. Sir, I do not understand. We intercepted communications from the Peace Coalition, Rodriguez said coldly. We know all about your little group of traitors. Jake's heart sank. If they had discovered the coalition, that meant Zara Lynn was in danger too. The Altarians have also uncovered the conspiracy, Rodriguez continued. Your alien girlfriend has been sentenced to exile. She will be stripped of her rank and banished from Altarian space forever. Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Not only had they failed to bring peace, but now Zara Lynn was being punished for trying. You will be court-martialed tomorrow, Rodriguez said as the military police put handcuffs on Jake. The penalty for treason during wartime is death. As they dragged him away, Jake thought about Zara Lynn somewhere out there in space, alone and exiled from her own people. They had tried to bridge the gap between their species with love and hope. Instead, they had only made the war worse. Both sides now believed that the other had been planning treachery all along. The fighting escalated to levels of brutality that made the previous 3 years look like minor skirmishes. Jake sat in his cell and wondered if he and Zara Lynn would ever see each other again, or if either of them would live long enough for it to matter. 6 months had passed since Jake was arrested for treason. 6 months since Zara Lynn was exiled from Altarian space. The war had grown worse than anyone could have imagined. Entire star systems were being destroyed. Billions of people, both human and Altarian, were dead. Jake escaped from military prison during a bombing raid that destroyed half the detention facility. He found a group of human soldiers who had deserted rather than continue fighting a war they no longer believed in. They called themselves the Free Company, and they lived on old mining stations in neutral space. The Free Company was led by Colonel Hayes, who had also escaped when the Peace Coalition was discovered. She had managed to save some of the human members of the group, but they had no contact with the Altarian side. We failed, Hayes said one evening as she and Jake looked out at the stars through the station's observation deck. The war is worse than ever. Maybe, Jake said. But we have not given up yet. What can we do? Hayes asked. We are just a few dozen deserters hiding in an asteroid field. Both our governments want us dead. Jake had been thinking about that question for months. We show them that humans and Altarians can work together. We prove that cooperation is possible. How? By saving lives, Jake said. Both human and Altarian lives. By being what we want the galaxy to become. It was a crazy idea, but Hayes agreed to try it. The Free Company began rescuing survivors from destroyed ships, regardless of which species they belonged to. They set up refugee camps on abandoned planets. They shared resources and medical supplies with anyone who needed help. Word of their activities spread through both fleets. Some called them traitors, others called them heroes, but everyone heard about them. Then one day, everything changed. Jake was treating wounded refugees in a makeshift hospital when someone called his name. He turned around and felt his heart stop. Zara Lynn stood in the doorway, thinner than he remembered and wearing the simple clothes of an exile instead of a military uniform. But her silver eyes were the same, and when she saw him, her crystal skin began to glow with joy. "Jake," she whispered. He dropped his medical supplies and ran to her, pulling her into his arms. She felt real and warm and alive, and for a moment Jake could not believe she was actually there. "How did you find me?" he asked when they finally broke apart. "I have been looking for you for months," Zara Lynn said. "When I heard about the Free Company, I knew you would be here." "Are you alone?" Jake asked. Zara Lynn smiled. "No. I brought friends." Behind her, a group of Altarians entered the hospital. Like Zara Lynn, they wore simple clothes instead of uniforms. Jake recognized some of them from the Peace Coalition. "We are the exiled," one of them explained. "Altarians who were banished for opposing the war. When we heard about your Free Company, we decided to join you." Hayes appeared beside Jake, looking amazed. "This is incredible. We finally have both species working together again." Over the following weeks, the Free Company and the Exiled merged into a single organization. They called themselves the Unity Fleet, and they became something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans and Altarians working side by side as equals. Jake and Zara Lynn were reunited not just as lovers, but as partners in something bigger than themselves. They led rescue missions together, saved lives together, and slowly built a community where species did not matter. "Look at this," Zara Lynn said one evening as they watched human and Altarian children playing together in the station's recreation area. "This is what the galaxy could be like." "If we can end the war," Jake said. "We will," Zara Lynn said with certainty. "I can feel it. This is not the end of our story, Jake. It is the beginning." But the war was getting worse. Both the Terran Coalition and the Altarian Federation were preparing for final assaults. Massive fleets were gathering on both sides. When they met, it would be the end of one civilization or the other. "We have to do something," Jake said at an emergency meeting of the Unity Fleet's leaders. "If those fleets fight, billions more will die." "What can we do?" asked Captain Ross, one of the human deserters. "We have maybe 50 ships, they have thousands." Zara Lynn stood up. "We place ourselves between them." Everyone stared at her. "That is suicide," someone said. "Maybe," Zara Lynn agreed. "But it is also the only way to make them stop and listen." Jake understood immediately. "A sacrifice play. We put ourselves in the line of fire and broadcast a message of peace. Force both sides to see what they are really fighting for." "They will destroy us," Hayes pointed out. "They might," Jake said. "But they might also hesitate long enough to hear what we have to say." It took 3 days to prepare. The Unity Fleet gathered every ship they had. Old cargo, haulers, converted mining vessels, a few stolen military fighters, 52 ships in total. Carrying 3,000 humans and Altarians who had chosen peace over war, they positioned themselves at the Meridian jump point, directly between the two massive battle fleets that were converging for the final confrontation. Jake and Zara Lynn stood together on the bridge of their flagship, a converted transport ship they had renamed the New Hope. Through the view screen, they could see the approaching fleets. Thousands of ships on each side, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. Open all communication channels, Jake ordered. All frequencies, both human and Altarian. The communication officer nodded. Channels open, sir. Jake took Zara Lynn's hand. Together they began to speak. This is Commander Zara Lynn of Altaria, and Sergeant Jake Morrison of Earth, they said, their voices carrying across space to both fleets. We are speaking to you from the Unity Fleet, a combined force of humans and Altarians who have chosen to work together instead of fighting. On the view screens they could see both battle fleets slowing down, confused by the ships blocking their path. For 6 months we have lived and worked together, Zara Lynn continued. We have saved lives from both our species. We have shared resources, knowledge, and friendship. We have proven that humans and Altarians can not only coexist, but thrive together. We know that both fleets are here to end this war through violence, Jake added, but we are here to offer you another choice, the choice of peace. The response came quickly. Admiral Peterson of the Terran fleet ordered them to move aside or be destroyed. General Kethamar of the Altarian fleet made the same demand. We will not move, Jake and Zara Lynn said together. If you want to continue this war, you will have to destroy us first. You will have to kill the very people who represent the future you claim to be fighting for. For long minutes nothing happened. The 3 fleets hung in space, thousands of ships facing each other across the darkness. Then the weapons began to charge. All ships, Jake broadcast to the Unity fleet. Hold position. Do not return fire under any circumstances. Jake squeezed Zara Lynn's hand. Are you ready? I am ready, she said. If we die together. If we live, we change the galaxy. The first shots came from both fleets simultaneously. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Unity fleet. But something strange happened. Many of the shots missed on purpose. Some of the military ships on both sides were deliberately firing wide. More than that, some ships from both fleets were breaking formation. Human vessels were moving to shield Altarian ships in the Unity fleet. Altarian vessels were protecting human refugees. This is Captain Williams of the Defiant, came a voice over the radio. We are joining the Unity fleet. We will not fire on ships carrying human civilians. This is Commander Veltar of the Crystal Dawn, said another voice. We stand with the Unity fleet. No more killing. One by one, ships from both battle fleets began switching sides. Crews who had been fighting for years were finally seeing what they were really fighting for. Not conquest or revenge, but the right to live in peace. Within an hour, half of both fleets had joined the Unity fleet. The remaining ships found themselves outnumbered by their own former allies. Admiral Peterson and General Kethamar had no choice but to call for a ceasefire. The peace negotiations took 6 months. Jake and Zara Lynn served as mediators, helping both sides understand each other's perspective. The final treaty established new protocols for interspecies communication, created joint colonies where humans and Altarians could live together, and set up systems to prevent future misunderstandings. The war was over. 5 years later, Jake and Zara Lynn stood on the balcony of their home on New Eden, the first official human-Altarian colony world. Below them, the city bustled with activity as beings from both species worked, played, and lived together. Do you remember when we thought this was impossible? Zara Lynn asked, watching human and Altarian children running through the streets, together. Which part? Jake asked with a smile. Falling in love with an alien, ending a galactic war, or having kids that glow blue when they are happy. Zara Lynn laughed and touched her stomach, where their second child was growing. Medical science had made it possible for humans and Altarians to have children together, though the process was complicated and the children were unique, combining human emotion with Altarian telepathy. Their first child, Danny, named after Jake's brother, came running up to them with his friend Kess, an Altarian boy his age. Both children were excited about something they had discovered in the market. Dad, Mom, look what we found, Danny said, his skin flickering between human pink and Altarian blue as his emotion shifted.